What happens when America's sweetheart collides with tough questions that cut deeper than expected? That's exactly what unfolded when Kelly Clarkson's interview on Today with Jenna and Friends took a shocking turn, ending with Clarkson storming off set in a moment that left fans stunned and the entertainment world buzzing. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. It was something far more explosive. The day began like any other on the morning show. Clarkson, fresh off her latest album release, was expected to share stories about her creative process, maybe laugh along with Jenna Bush-Hager, and deliver the kind of feel-good conversation that usually breezes by in 20 minutes. But from the moment she walked onto the studio floor, something felt different. The greeting seemed stiff, the small talk a little strained, and even Jenna's trademark bubbly smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Clarkson, though composed, looked guarded, as if anticipating a curveball. At first, everything seemed normal. The conversation touched on music, inspiration, and career milestones. But then Jenna shifted gears. Her tone grew serious as she asked about headlines claiming Clarkson's recent career moves weren't entirely her own, that maybe outside pressures were shaping her decisions. The change in mood was instant. Clarkson's smile faded, her posture stiffened, and her voice carried a defensive edge as she shot back. "Every decision I make about my career, my music, and my life is my own." Instead of backing down, Jenna pushed further, pointing to changes in Clarkson's public image and wondering aloud whether she was truly in control of her narrative. That's when the temperature in the studio rose. Clarkson's response was sharp, her laugh devoid of its usual warmth. "Are you seriously suggesting that because I'm more selective about what I share, I'm not in control of my own life?" The tension was unmistakable, and the co-host's uneasy glances revealed just how far the interview had veered off course. Jenna tried to soften her approach, insisting she only wanted an honest conversation about the pressures of fame. But by then the damage was done. Clarkson, visibly frustrated, demanded clarity. "Because it sounds to me like you're implying I'm some kind of puppet who can't make her own decisions. Is that really the angle you want to take with this interview?" Silence fell across the studio. The cameras kept rolling, catching every second of the uncomfortable standoff. Jenna attempted to regain control, but Clarkson had had enough. Rising from her chair, she offered no further words, only a look that spoke volumes before walking straight off the set. The fallout was immediate. Viewers at home flooded social media with reactions, some defending Clarkson's right to draw boundaries, others criticizing Jenna for pushing too far. What was meant to be a light promotional appearance turned into one of the most talked-about clashes in recent daytime television history, an interview that people will be dissecting for a long time to come. Kelly's voice now carried an unmistakable edge, something dangerously close to anger. "If you wanted an honest conversation, Jenna," she said sharply, "you might have started with honesty instead of ambushing me with unnamed sources and speculation disguised as concern." The atmosphere inside the studio grew heavier, the tension cutting through the air. The other co-hosts scrambled to intervene, desperate to steer the interview back toward safer ground. But Clarkson had reached her breaking point, and everyone in that room could feel it. "You know what? Let me give you some honesty," Kelly continued, her voice rising with strength and conviction. "I've been doing interviews like this for more years than I care to count, and I can spot a setup from a mile away. This isn't journalism. This isn't even good television. This is gossip masquerading as news, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise." Her words landed like blows, and the tension became palpable. Crew members shifted uneasily behind the cameras while the co-hosts exchanged nervous glances. Jenna's face flushed as Clarkson's accusations hung in the air like a challenge that demanded an answer. Jenna tried to steady herself, though her voice betrayed a tremor. "Kelly, I think you're overreacting. We're simply asking questions that our viewers want answered. That's what good journalism is." Kelly let out a bitter laugh and shook her head. "Good journalism, Jenna? Good journalism involves fact-checking credible sources and giving your subject a fair chance to respond. What you're doing is repeating gossip and then acting offended when I refuse to play along." One co-host quickly attempted to smooth things over, suggesting they shift the conversation to Clarkson's upcoming tour dates. But Kelly wasn't interested in distractions. Her focus remained locked on Jenna, her media polish abandoned in favor of raw, unfiltered honesty. "No," she said firmly. "I think we need to finish this conversation first." Jenna, since you seem so concerned about my authenticity and my narrative, let me ask you something. How authentic is it to smile at someone while you're essentially calling them a liar? Jenna bristled. I never called you a liar. But her voice lacked conviction. Kelly leaned in, refusing to let her off the hook. Didn't you? When you suggest my career decisions aren't my own, when you imply I'm being controlled by unnamed forces, when you question whether I'm happy with my choices, what exactly would you call that? The live studio audience shifted uneasily in their seats. This was not the breezy entertainment they had expected from a morning talk show. Jenna, sensing her grip on the interview slipping, pushed back harder. Kelly, I have to say, your reaction to these questions is actually proving some of the points people have been raising about your recent behavior. The words hit Kelly like a physical blow. For a moment, silence swallowed the studio. Then she spoke again, her voice dangerously calm, the kind of stillness that warns of a coming storm. My recent behavior? And what behavior would that be, Jenna? The behavior of someone who refuses to be bullied on national television? The behavior of someone who won't sit quietly while you tear down everything I've worked for, based on anonymous gossip? Jenna tried to defend herself, insisting she wasn't tearing anything down, but Clarkson was finished with polite diplomacy. You know what I find fascinating about this whole conversation? She pressed on, her voice gaining momentum. You've sat here questioning my authenticity, my happiness, my control over my own life, but you haven't asked me a single question about my music. Not one question about the album I'm here to promote. Not one about my creative process. Nothing that actually matters to my fans or my career. Instead, you want to dwell on unnamed sources and speculation. You want to psychoanalyze me on morning television, based on what? The fact that I've chosen to be more private about certain parts of my life. The fact that I've made business decisions people don't understand. The fact that I've grown as a person and as an artist after 20 years in this industry.
Kelly, if you'd just let me clarify what I meant, Jenna began, but Clarkson cut her off.
No, Jenna, I think you've clarified enough. You've made it very clear that you're more interested in creating drama than having a meaningful conversation. You've shown that you value gossip over journalism, speculation over facts. The temperature in the room seemed to rise with every word. Kelly's usually warm eyes now burned with intensity, and it was clear to everyone present that they were witnessing something unprecedented. She leaned forward one final time, her voice ringing with raw defiance. Let me tell you what authentic looks like, Jenna. Authentic is calling out unprofessional behavior when you see it. Authentic is refusing to participate in tabloid journalism, masquerading as legitimate media. Authentic is standing up for yourself when someone tries to ambush you on national television. One of the co-hosts made a desperate attempt to salvage the segment, suggesting they take a quick commercial break and start fresh. But Kelly was already shaking her head before the words were even finished. Start fresh with what? She shot back. More unnamed sources? More speculation disguised as concern? More questions designed to make me look defensive no matter how I answer? Her rejection landed hard, and Jenna's carefully composed professionalism began to crack under the relentless pressure. Kelly, I have to say, this level of hostility feels unnecessary. We're just doing our job here, Jenna insisted, but Clarkson wasn't having it. Her voice rose again, sharp enough to make several crew members flinch. Your job? Your job is supposed to be informing and entertaining your audience, not ambushing your guests with poorly researched hit pieces. Your job is supposed to involve preparation and professionalism, not throwing out accusations to see what sticks. The co-hosts were now visibly panicking, desperate to stop the unraveling of what had become a live disaster. But Kelly wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her voice ringing with raw conviction. You want to know what's really authentic, Jenna? Admitting when you've made a mistake. Apologizing when you've treated someone unfairly. Taking responsibility for your own behavior instead of trying to make your guest look like the problem. Jenna's face flushed red, whether from anger, embarrassment, or both, as Kelly pressed harder. Based on what sources? What research? What facts? You've presented nothing but gossip and speculation, and now you're acting like I'm the unreasonable one for refusing to validate your tabloid approach to journalism. The studio audience sat in complete silence. Everyone present understood that they were witnessing a breakdown, unlike anything morning television usually dared to show. This wasn't just a celebrity having a bad day. This was the complete collapse of the polished, Sanitized illusion daytime shows depend on. Kelly suddenly stood, the scrape of her chair against the studio floor echoing like a gunshot in the tense silence. You know what, Jenna? I think we're done here. Gasps rippled across the room as the cameras captured every second of the confrontation, ensuring this moment would be replayed and debated for years to come. Jenna's eyes widened, panic flickering across her face. Kelly, please, let's just sit back down and finish this conversation like adults. Kelly let out a sharp, humorless laugh as she stood tall, radiating the confidence of someone who had decided she was finished playing nice. Like adults? Adults don't ambush their guest with unfounded accusations and then act shocked when they get called out for it. The studio fell into another round of suffocating silence. The co-hosts looked frozen, like deer caught in headlights, unsure whether to intervene or let the wreck unfold on its own. Kelly's voice cut through the stillness once again. You know what the real tragedy is here? I came here excited to talk about my music, to connect with my fans, to share something meaningful. Instead, I walked straight into a poorly planned gotcha interview that belongs in a trashy gossip magazine. Jenna, her voice trembling now, made one last attempt to salvage the moment. Kelly, if you felt ambushed, that wasn't our intention. Maybe we can start over and focus on the music. Kelly's eyes blazed as she shot back. Start over? Jenna, you can't unring a bell. You can't spend 15 minutes questioning my authenticity, my decisions, and my happiness, and then suddenly pretend we can move on to chatting about chord progressions and studio sessions. Another co-host, sweating under the studio lights, tried weakly to inject humor. Well, this is certainly more excitement than we usually have on a Tuesday morning. Kelly turned her glare on him, and his smile quickly evaporated. Excitement? Is that what you call this? Watching someone get ambushed on live television? Watching a guest treated with this level of disrespect? You think that's entertainment? The co-host backpedaled instantly. No, that's not what I meant at all. I just thought maybe we could lighten the mood a little. Kelly's voice rose sharp as a blade. Lighten the mood? The mood doesn't need to be lightened, it needs to be acknowledged. And with that, the studio knew they had reached the point of no return. What happened on that set today needs to be called out for exactly what it was: unprofessional, disrespectful, and far beneath the standards viewers expect from a show like Today with Jenna and Friends. Jenna, perhaps realizing that her own reputation and career might be on the line, made one final attempt to regain control. Kelly, I want you to know that we have nothing but respect for you and your career. If our questions came across as disrespectful, that wasn't our intention. Kelly paused for a long moment, studying Jenna's face as if weighing whether the apology was genuine or simply another calculated move. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter but no less intense. Intention, Jenna, is only part of the equation. Impact matters too. And the impact of what happened here today is that you made me feel like I had to defend my basic right to make my own life choices on national television. You made me feel like my 20-plus years in this industry count for nothing unless I conform to whatever narrative you've decided fits your show. The other co-hosts remained silent, clearly aware that anything they said could only make things worse. The studio audience sat in rapt attention, witnessing what felt like a masterclass in how not to conduct a celebrity interview. Kelly's voice carried with a note of genuine disappointment as she continued. You want to know what's really sad about all of this? I've been a fan of this show for years. I've watched you interview countless guests with warmth and professionalism. I came here today expecting that same treatment, that same respect. Instead, I got ambushed with gossip and speculation. Jenna's voice was barely above a whisper when she replied, Kelly, I'm truly sorry if we made you feel that way. That was the breaking point. Kelly's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. If you made me feel that way? Jenna, there's no if about it. You questioned my authenticity. You questioned my happiness. You questioned my ability to make my own career decisions. And you did it all based on what you yourself admitted were unnamed sources and speculation. That's not journalism. That's character assassination. The tension in the room had reached a fever pitch. Everyone present seemed to understand they were witnessing something unprecedented. This wasn't just a celebrity having a bad day. This was a complete indictment of the toxic practices that had become all too common in modern media. Kelly rose from her seat, her heels clicking against the studio floor with a rhythm that sounded like a countdown. You know what? I'm done. I'm done pretending this kind of behavior is acceptable just because it happens on television. I'm done sitting quietly while someone tries to tear down everything I've worked for based on gossip and speculation. Jenna's voice cracked with desperation as she called after her. Kelly, please don't leave like this. Let's talk about this off camera. Kelly stopped and turned back, her expression a mix of anger and deep disappointment. Off camera? Now you want to have the real conversation off camera? After you've already done the damage on live television? After you've made your accusations in front of your entire audience? The studio was so silent that even the hum of the cameras felt deafening. Kelly's voice rang out one last time, carrying clearly through the stunned room. Let me leave you with this thought, Jenna. The next time you have a guest on this show, maybe ask yourself if you're treating them with the same respect you'd want for yourself. Ask if your questions are based on facts or just gossip. And ask if you're adding value to the conversation or just creating drama for ratings. With those words, Kelly Clarkson turned and walked off the set, leaving behind a mortified host, a silent audience, and what would soon become one of the most analyzed moments in the history of morning television. The cameras kept rolling as Jenna sat frozen, struggling to process what had just happened. Her co-host looked equally shell-shocked, unsure how to fill the deafening silence. The audience, still glued to their seats, understood they had witnessed something closer to a train wreck than entertainment, an unscripted implosion that would be replayed and dissected for months to come. And now the question lingers. What truly pushed Kelly over the edge? Was it the reliance on unnamed sources, the constant questioning of her authenticity, or something deeper about how celebrities are treated by the media today?